Hello everyone, my name is Christian, welcome to my hobby blog. Today we are on day 27 of Spooktober. We got 4 days left after today. So, what did I watch today? Well, this is a film that I have seen many times throughout my life. Since I want to say late middle school, early high school. This is Guillermo del Toro's El Espinazo del Diablo, otherwise known as The Devil's Backbone. This movie is one that I absolutely love. I rank it up there with Pan's Labyrinth. I haven't seen Hellboy in a very long time, so I'm not gonna form opinions about that, but this is up there with Pan's Labyrinth. Pan's Labyrinth is masterful. I love it. But this one, I love just as much. I think I relate to this one a lot more. I don't really know about the Spanish Civil War as much, which this movie and Pan's Labyrinth deals with. But this one is just a classic ghost story about a haunted orphanage that this kid whose father is a revolutionary for the leftist side, the revolutionary side, and his father dies. He is sent to an orphanage. He gets dropped off, and there's a inactive bomb in the middle of a courtyard, and that's kind of the centerpiece for the film. I watched this finally with the director's commentary track with Guillermo del Toro, and my god, this is like, it was like having somebody plug a USB into my brain and just upload all the information about this film that I had no idea about. Guillermo del Toro is a masterclass of film, in my opinion. I have always been fascinated by his career. I absolutely love him. And watching him discuss The Devil's Backbone was just, it blew me away. And one thing I just had no idea about, the first section of his commentary track is all about gothic horror novels from the 1700s that he has read throughout his life, and talk about the paintings that he saw that impacted him deeply, and images that he used from those paintings in order to form the visuals of this film. And that was just something I just don't know about, is art history or anything like that. And so watching him explain, hey, this painting here is all about, this. And so I use that to make a plot point out of this. And it just builds on each other, and it's insane. And watching him, he barely talks about the movie itself, because commentary tracks are usually, oh, there's that actor, he did this, and I wanted him for this role because of this, and just on and on and on. But for this movie, he's like, I'm not even going to talk about the movie. I'm going to talk about my influences in creating this movie. And he talks about the gothic horror genre, Mexican paintings that he had seen throughout his life. And he also talked about his upbringing with his grandmother, where he lived in a very large house with his grandmother and his siblings. And there were many points in this film where he was like, oh yeah, that scene where our main character is walking down a hallway and he turns into another hallway and he sees a silhouette. That was my fear growing up. And so for him, that was just something absolutely insane, and something that he was just terrified about. And he also talked about how there's this plot point in this movie where an older figure for our main character kind of poo-poos the main character's, belief in ghosts. And he's like, oh, it's very scientific, this, that, and the other. And he's talking about a specific concoction that people apparently used to make, where they would add really, really old rum and cloves of garlic, I believe, or olive, and they would mix them together and put like fetuses inside of it in order to preserve it. But also, if you drank the liquid, it would cure your sterility, or whatever it's called, when you are unable to what's it called? When you're unable to impregnate somebody and to continue life. And so he talked about all these little things that he had learned about through his life. Like when he was discussing the release of Kronos at the Cannes Film Festival. And he talked about how during one of the markets he and his wife were walking through, and he saw a big jar of rum and olives, or whatever, that weird juice concoction that he talked about. He talked about how he joked to his wife how he was like, wow, this is really old. And meanwhile, there's like a fetus within this jar, just like floating there. And he talks about how he was joking with his wife about it, being like, wow, I bet that would taste really good. And his wife was like, oh my God. And he thought it was the funniest thing, so he wrote it down in his diary just for ideas for the next feature he was going to make. And that ended up being a very major plot point of the film. And he also has a lot of many different homages throughout the film. I think the one that spoke to me the most was when our main character is flipping through an art book of different drawings that he's made. And there's a very specific one that for years I was like, this is, somehow I know what this is, but I don't know what it is. And he pointed it out specifically and said, hey, that painting or that drawing that the kid made, that's Deep Red from Dario Argento. That's one of the most famous shots from Dario Argento. And I made, a drawing of that and put it into the notebooks. That's my nod. And there's also a moment when one of our characters is slipping on a wooden leg for a woman who only has one leg. And he was like, oh yes, this was my Cinderella moment. And he just laughed so much during that. He was very jovial throughout the commentary track and very informative. And it was just so nice to just listen to him. Because I've seen a couple videos by him, not by him, but with him on YouTube, where I think my favorite one is the one where he's giving a tour of his house, where he has just figurines upon figurines and life-size busts and all this stuff, all these famous horror figures throughout time, from the 20s all the way to modern day. And that's like a 3-minute video, and it was so informative in terms of his filmmaking. But this movie is an hour and 48 minutes, so you get to listen to him for almost 2 hours talk about his film inspirations. And he talks about Shakespeare, Mark Twain, Mexican paintings from the 1600s all the way to today. It was just really, really spectacular to listen to him. And I've always been enamored with Del Toro. I've seen Kronos, his first film, I think is very interesting in terms of his filmography. I've seen this movie, Devil's Backbone, Pan's Labyrinth, Shape of Water, Hellboy 2. I think that's it. Criterion needs to release more, but this movie is an absolute delight. It's up there with Pan's Labyrinth. It's a shame that Criterion has not released more films by him. Even if Hellboy is a schlocky superhero film, I don't care. It's Del Toro. I've heard his commentary track is amazing. He also made Blade 2. I've seen that. So that's 7 or 8 films that I've seen by him. That's really it. I mean, I know it's not much about the film, but I mean, I've seen it so many times. At its root, it's a haunted house film, except it takes place at a Spanish orphanage during the Spanish Civil War, which is also the setting for Pan's Labyrinth. But we just have a lot of really fun subversions of the gothic horror genre. And I think at one point he even discussed Carnival of Souls, which was a lot of fun. I watched that last night. I did not highlight it for my Spooktober watch list, because that was a film that I really don't have many thoughts on, but I love it. I watched an interview with some film historian who really brought to light a lot of different cases about how Carnival of Souls was the precursor to Night of the Living Dead. It came out the same year as Psycho, and it has the same story structure, which just blew me away. Never even thought of that. But enough of that. We are here to talk about Devil's Backbone. This film, the visuals are very haunting, very creepy. It has all the showcases of gothic horror, which I'm not very familiar with. I've read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which he cites as a huge inspiration for this, about falling in love with the other. And he talks about his distaste for fascism and how he views fascist people as soulless, as people who are lonely, and instead of reaching out to humans and trying to befriend them, they instead find themselves pushing back against humanity. And that was really interesting. It was good to know that he takes that stance, because I agree with him. And it was something I've never had words for. So, yeah. What a great film. I love Devil's Backbone, and after watching the commentary track, what a phenomenal watch. So that is it. Thank you all for watching. Again, this is Devil's Backbone, El Espinazo del Diablo by Guillermo del Toro, 2001. Thank you again.